They broke my leg to keep me obedient, treated me like a stain on their perfect reputation, and laughed when I fell, but the laughter died the moment the devil walked through the doors to claim his property. The chandeliers of the Grand Plaza Hotel mocked me. They glittered with a brilliance that made my eyes ache, casting a golden glow over the hundreds of guests who moved like a tide of silk and expensive cologne. It was my sister's wedding, the event of the decade, according to my mother, and I was the only mistake in the room. "Julian, move," my mother hissed, her voice low and sharp, like the hidden edge of a blade. She pinched the fabric of my cheap, ill-fitting gray suit, pulling me out of the frame of the professional photographer. "You're ruining the aesthetic. Go stand behind the pillar." I swallowed the lump of humiliation in my throat, nodding silently. "Yes, Mother." I tried to step back quickly, but my left leg didn't cooperate. A sharp, blinding bolt of agony shot up from my ankle to my hip. I stifled a gasp, biting my lip until I tasted copper. My leg, damaged 3 years ago in an accident my family refused to speak about, dragged heavily across the marble floor. I didn't have my cane today. My sister, Clara, had forbidden it. "It looks pathetic, Julian," she had said while checking her makeup. "Just try not to limp. It's embarrassing for the groom's family." I limped to the shadows behind a massive floral arrangement of white hydrangeas, my breath coming in shallow, ragged puffs. The pain was a living thing today, a beast gnawing at my bones. Standing without support for 4 hours had turned the dull ache into a screaming fire. From my hiding spot, I watched Clara. She looked radiant, I had to admit. An alpha female, proud and tall, wrapped in lace that cost more than my entire existence. She was laughing with her new husband, a beta from a wealthy banking family. They were the perfect couple. The pride of the Sterling family. And I was the defect. The Omega who hadn't presented until late, the one with the broken leg, the one they kept in the attic like a dirty secret. "Hey, cripple." I flinched, turning to see my cousin, Marcus. He was holding a tray of empty champagne flutes, his face flushed with alcohol. "Aunt Sarah needs you to run these to the kitchen. The waitstaff is busy." I can't walk that far right now, Marcus," I whispered, leaning heavily against the wall to take the weight off my bad leg. "Please. It hurts." Marcus sneered, his eyes dropping to my trembling leg. "Don't be useless. You're living under their roof for free, aren't you? The least you can do is make yourself useful since you can't exactly contribute to the family legacy." He shoved the tray into my chest. I instinctively grabbed it to stop it from falling, the sudden weight making my knees buckle. "Marcus, please." "Go," he snapped, shoving my shoulder. The push wasn't hard, not really. But for someone whose balance was hanging by a thread, it was enough. My bad leg gave way. Time seemed to slow down. I felt the tray slip from my sweating palms. I saw the crystal flutes tilting in the air, catching the light one last time before gravity took over. Crash. The sound was like a gunshot in the crowded ballroom. The music from the string quartet seemed to screech to a halt. The chatter, the laughter, the clinking of silverware, it all vanished instantly, replaced by a suffocating silence. I lay on the cold marble, surrounded by jagged shards of glass. A puddle of leftover champagne soaked into the knees of my trousers. The pain in my leg was so intense that my vision blurred, white spots dancing before my eyes. I curled in on myself, a small, pathetic ball of misery. "Julian!" My sister's shriek pierced the air. She marched over, her heels clicking ominously on the floor. She didn't look concerned. She looked furious. "Look what you did," she screamed, pointing a manicured finger at me. "You clumsy, useless idiot. You did this on purpose, didn't you? You just had to make this day about you." I didn't." I gasped, trying to push myself up, but a shard of glass sliced into my palm. I hissed, clutching my hand to my chest. I fell. Marcus pushed. "Don't you dare blame Marcus." My mother appeared beside Clara, her face a mask of cold fury. She looked down at me not as a son, but as something she had stepped in. "Get up. Now." "I can't," I sobbed, the tears finally spilling over. "Mom, my leg. I think something tore. It hurts so much." "Stop being dramatic," my father's voice joined the chorus. He loomed over me, an imposing alpha whose presence usually made me cower. "Get up and clean this mess. You are humiliating us in front of the senator." "I can't stand," I cried out, the desperation taking over. The pain was nauseating. I needed help. I needed a doctor. My father grabbed my arm, hauling me up roughly. I screamed as my weight landed on the bad leg, the agony sending a shockwave through my body so severe I nearly vomited. He dropped me back down in disgust when I couldn't hold myself up. "Get him out of here," Clara hissed, smoothing her dress. "Drag him to the back exit. Throw him in the alley if you have to. I don't want to see his face for the rest of the night." "Please," I whimpered, looking around the room. Hundreds of eyes. Some looked pitying, but most just looked annoyed or amused. No one moved to help. I was the limp omega. The broken toy. My father signaled to two of the venue's security guards. "Get him out. Put him in the code check room until the reception is over. I don't want him seen." The guards, big burly betas, grabbed me under the arms. They didn't care about my injury. They dragged me backward, my feet trailing through the broken glass. I bit my tongue to stop from screaming, my head lolling back. They threw me into the small, dusty code check room near the back entrance and slammed the door. The lock clicked. Darkness. I lay on the floor, surrounded by heavy wool coats that smelled of winter and money. My leg was throbbing with a pulse of its own, swelling rapidly against the fabric of my trousers. I was alone. Rejected. Broken. No, I thought, a sudden clarity cutting through the haze of pain. Not alone. My trembling hand reached into my pocket. My phone screen was cracked from the fall, but it lit up. I had one contact on speed dial. One number that I was forbidden to call, a man my family didn't know I knew. A man they feared more than death itself. I pressed the button. It rang once. "Julian?" The voice on the other end was deep, rough, like gravel grinding against velvet. It was a voice that commanded armies, a voice that made alphas kneel. But when he said my name, it was soft. "Tesoro? Why are you calling? I thought you couldn't use the phone during the reception." "Dante," I choked out, a sob breaking free. The silence on the other end was immediate and terrifying. The softness vanished. "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" They heard me," I whispered, curling tighter into a ball, clutching the phone like a lifeline. "My leg. I fell. They dragged me out. They locked me in the closet, Dante. It hurts so bad. I can't walk." "Who?" The single word was spoken with such lethal calm it made the hairs on my arms stand up. "Everyone. My father." "Clara, please, I just want to go home. I don't want to be here anymore." "Where are you exactly?" "The Grand Plaza. The coat room near the service exit." "Stay on the line, Julian. Do not hang up." "Dante, you can't come in," I panicked, my breathing hitching. "It's the Sterling wedding. There's security everywhere. The senator is here. If they see you—" "Julian," he cut me off. "Listen to me. Breathe." I tried to inhale, the scent of his pheromones, burnt cedar and rain, almost hallucinated by my omega instincts. "I am 5 minutes away," Dante said. I was waiting nearby. I had a feeling. "You were waiting?" "I never leave you unguarded, little one. Now listen. I am coming to get you. And God help anyone who stands between me and you." The line didn't go dead, he kept it open, his breathing steady in my ear as I heard the roar of an engine in the background, followed by the screech of tires. I lay there in the dark, clutching the phone, listening to the muffled sounds of the party outside. The laughter. The music. They were having a wonderful time, forgetting I existed. 5 minutes passed. They felt like 5 years. Suddenly, The music outside stopped. It didn't fade out, it was cut. Abruptly. The muffled chatter turned into confused murmurs, then into silence. A heavy, oppressive silence that seeped through the cracks of the door. Then, I heard it. The sound of the main double doors of the ballroom crashing open. It was a violent sound, echoing through the building. "Sir, you can't be in here. This is a private event," a security guard's voice shouted, muffled but audible. Thud. The sound of a body hitting the floor. "Anyone else?" Dante's voice. It wasn't shouting. He didn't need to shout. It projected through the hall, dark and terrifyingly clear. "Anyone else want to stop me?" Silence. Absolute, terrified silence. I dragged myself toward the door of the coat room, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Where is he?" Dante demanded. Who are you looking for, Mr. Vanzetti?" My father's voice. He sounded small. Shaking. For the first time in my life, my father sounded afraid. "Don't play games with me, Sterling," Dante snarled. The sound of footsteps, heavy, deliberate boots, echoed on the marble. The Omega. My Omega. Where did you hide him? My Omega. The collective gasp of the room was audible even from where I was. The Sterlings had a disabled, useless son. Everyone knew that. But no one knew he belonged to the Dawn of the Northern Syndicate. He was feeling unwell, my mother stammered. We put him in the back to rest. To rest? Dante's laugh was dark, devoid of humor. Or to rot. I heard him crying, "Sarah." I heard him begging. The footsteps got closer. Louder. He was hunting. He is in the coat check, my sister squeaked. She sounded on the verge of tears. "Open it," Dante commanded. It's locked. The key is with security in." Bang! The door to my small prison shuddered. I scrambled back as the wood splintered. Bang! A second kick, and the door flew open, the lock shattering. Light flooded into the dusty room. And there he was. Dante Vanzetti. The alpha of alphas. He was wearing a black suit that cost more than the entire wedding reception. His dark hair was slicked back, his jaw set in a line of pure rage. Behind him stood 4 of his lieutenants, heavily armed, scanning the terrified crowd of wedding guests who were pressed against the walls, pale as ghosts. Dante's eyes, cold steel gray, scanned the room until they landed on me. The rage in his face vanished instantly, replaced by a look of gut-wrenching horror. He saw me curled on the floor, my suit stained with champagne and dust, my face streaked with tears, clutching my swollen leg. "Julian," he breathed. He didn't walk, he rushed to me, dropping to his knees on the dirty floor, ignoring the dust on his pristine suit. His large, warm hands hovered over me, afraid to touch in case he hurt me more. "Dante," I sobbed, reaching out. He pulled me into his chest, burying his face in my neck. He smelled of power, of safety, of home. A low, threatening growl rumbled in his chest, vibrating against my ribs. It was an alpha's growl, a sound of possessiveness and fury. "I've got you," he whispered into my hair. "I'm here." He pulled back slightly to look at my leg. His eyes narrowed when he saw the unnatural angle of my ankle and the swelling. His jaw ticked. Very gently, he slid one arm under my knees and the other behind my back. He lifted me up as if I weighed nothing, cradling me against his chest. I buried my face in his shoulder, hiding from the world. Dante stood up, turning to face the room. I peeked out just enough to see the scene. My father was pale, sweating profusely. My mother was clutching her pearls, her mouth open in shock. Clara looked like she was about to faint. Her wedding was ruined, but that was the least of her worries now. The guests, senators, bankers, socialites, were frozen. They knew who Dante was. They knew that crossing him meant disappearing. Dante didn't shout. He didn't scream. He just looked at my family, his eyes burning with a cold, Promethean fire. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. You broke him, Dante said, his voice quiet, which made it infinitely more terrifying. He adjusted his grip on me, pulling me closer. You treated him like garbage. You threw him in a closet like a broken broom. Mr. Vanzetti, please, it's a misunderstanding, my father tried, stepping forward. Silence! Dante barked, the alpha command in his voice making my father's knees buckle instinctively. Dante walked forward, the crowd parting like the Red Sea. He stopped right in front of my father and sister. Pray, Dante said, looking down at them with pure disgust. Pray that his leg is not permanently damaged. Because for every hour of pain he suffers. He leaned in close to my father's face. I will take a finger from each of you. My mother let out a strangled sob. We're leaving, Dante announced to the room. And if I see a single photo of him looking like this on social media, I will burn this entire hotel to the ground. He turned and walked out, carrying me through the shattered doors, past the unconscious guards, and into the cool night air where his convoy awaited. As he settled me into the back of his leather-seated limousine, gently elevating my leg on a pillow, I looked up at him. You came, I whispered, still in disbelief. Dante brushed a tear from my cheek with his thumb, his expression softening into pure heartbreak. I will always come for you, Julian, he murmured, kissing my forehead. And now I'm going to make sure they never touch you again. The car pulled away, leaving the wedding, and my old life, in the rearview mirror. But I knew this wasn't the end. The war had just begun. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2, The Glass Doll. The silence inside the armored limousine was absolute, save for the hum of the engine and the ragged sound of my own breathing. Outside, the city lights blurred into streaks of gold and neon, but inside, the air was thick with the scent of burnt cedar and ozone, Dante's scent. It was usually a smell that commanded fear in others, a warning of impending violence. To me, it was the only oxygen I could breathe. I lay across the back seat, my head resting on Dante's lap. He had discarded his suit jacket to use as a makeshift cushion for my injured leg, elevating it carefully. His hand, large and calloused, was carding through my hair with a rhythmic, hypnotic gentleness that completely contradicted the murderous tension radiating from his body. Dr. Eris is meeting us at the penthouse, Dante said, his voice a low rumble against my ear. He wasn't speaking to me, but to the driver. Tell him to bring the portable imaging unit. I don't want Julian moved to a hospital. It's too public. Yes, Don Vanzetti, the driver replied, his eyes glued to the road. I winced as the car went over a slight bump, a fresh wave of nausea rolling over me. The adrenaline that had sustained me during the confrontation at the hotel was fading, leaving behind a cold, sharp reality. My ankle felt like it was encased in molten lead. I'm sorry, I whispered, the words slipping out before I could stop them. The habit of apologizing for my existence was etched into my bones. Dante's hand stopped moving in my hair. He looked down, his gray eyes darkening. Why are you apologizing, Tesoro? For the trouble. For ruining your night. You shouldn't have come. If the paparazzi got a photo of you carrying a cripple. I choked on the word, the label my sister had branded me with. Dante's grip tightened slightly in my hair, not enough to hurt, but enough to make me look at him. Do not use that word, he growled softly. And do not apologize for being rescued. The only people who should be apologizing are currently watching their social standing incinerate. He picked up his phone, tapping the screen. It's already begun. My men have leaked the security footage of your father dragging you. The narrative isn't clumsy Omega false. It's sterling patriarch abuses disabled son. By morning, their stock prices will be in freefall. A tiny, vindictive spark lit up in my chest, but it was quickly doused by fear. They'll be angry, Dante. When they're angry, they punish. They can't punish you if they can't reach you, Dante said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You are in the wolf's den now, Julian. No one enters unless I allow it. And the Sterlings? They are prey. The car slowed, turning into the underground garage of the Vanzetti Tower. It was a fortress of glass and steel that pierced the skyline, a testament to Dante's untouchable power. As the car stopped, the door was pulled open by guards. Dante didn't wait for assistance. He scooped me up again, carrying me bridal style toward the private elevator. I buried my face in his neck, inhaling deeply, trying to ground myself against the pain. The elevator ride was a blur of motion sickness. When the doors opened directly into the penthouse, the brightness of the space made me squeeze my eyes shut. In here, a new voice said, "Calm. Clinical." Dante carried me into a bedroom that was bigger than the entire attic I had lived in for the last 3 years. He laid me down on a massive bed with sheets that felt like cool water against my skin. "Dante, I need you to step back," the doctor said. He was an older beta with kind eyes and steady hands. "I'm not leaving," Dante stated, crossing his arms. He stood at the head of the bed, his presence a heavy blanket over the room. "Fine. But keep your pheromones in check." "You're stressing the patient," Dr. Aris muttered, cutting away the fabric of my trousers with medical shears. When the fabric fell away, a hiss of breath escaped the doctor. I refused to look. I knew it was bad. The silence in the room stretched, heavy and suffocating. "Is it broken again?" I asked, staring at the ceiling, counting the crystal teardrops on the chandelier. "It's a severe re-injury of the previous trauma," Dr. Aris said, his voice tight. "The bone didn't snap fully, thank God, but there are microfractures, and the ligaments are torn. The swelling is compressing the nerves. That's why the pain is so intense." He looked up at Dante. "He needs it reset. Now. Before the swelling gets worse." "Do it," Dante said, though I felt his hand take mine, squeezing it tight. "I can't give him general anesthesia safely right now because of the shock," Dr. Aris explained, preparing a syringe. "I'll give him a local block and a sedative, but... Julian, you're going to feel pressure. And pain. I need you to be brave." I laughed, a weak, wet sound. "I'm used to pain, doctor. My father didn't believe in painkillers for clumsiness." I felt Dante's hand twitch in mine. His rage was a palpable thing, vibrating through the mattress. The needle pricked my skin, numbing the sharpest edge of the agony, but when Dr. Aris grabbed my heel to manipulate the joint back into alignment, I couldn't help it. I screamed. It was a raw, animalistic sound that tore from my throat. My back arched off the bed, white light exploding behind my eyelids. "Shoo, shoo, I've got you." Dante was there instantly. He wasn't just holding my hand anymore, he was leaning over me, his forehead pressed against my temple, surrounding me. "Look at me, Julian. Look at me. Breathe. It hurts, please stop." I begged, thrashing weakly. "It's almost over," Dante promised, his voice thick with emotion. "Focus on me. Just me." He released his scent fully then, a wave of calming, dominant alpha pheromones designed to soothe a distressed mate. It washed over me, a chemical command to relax, submit, trust. My body responded instinctively, my muscles unlocking, my breathing hitching as the sedative finally kicked in. The world went soft and fuzzy. The pain drifted away, becoming a distant throb rather than a screaming fire. "It's done," Dr. Aris's voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. "I've stabilized it. He needs rest. Absolute bed rest for at least 3 weeks. If he walks on it, he might never walk again." "He won't walk," Dante vowed. "I'll carry him if I have to." The last thing I felt before the darkness took me completely was Dante kissing my knuckles, one by one. I woke up to the smell of coffee and something sweeter. Pastries? My eyes fluttered open. For a second, panic seized me. I expected the dusty rafters of the Sterling attic. I expected the cold draft and the smell of mold. Instead, I saw floor-to-ceiling windows revealing a panoramic view of the city bathed in morning light. I tried to sit up, but a heavy weight on my legs stopped me. Dante was asleep in a chair next to the bed, but his upper body was slumped forward onto the mattress, his head resting near my hip. His hand was still loosely holding mine. He was still wearing his suit trousers and shirt from last night, the top buttons undone, his tie discarded on the floor. The dawn of the syndicate. The most feared man in the city. sleeping like a guard dog at my bedside. I watched him for a moment, my heart aching in a way that had nothing to do with my leg. I loved him. I had loved him since the day we met in secret at the library 2 years ago, back when I could still limp with a cane. He hadn't seen a cripple then, he had seen me. But loving Dante Vanzetti was dangerous. Not for me, but for him. My family would use my weakness to hurt him. I shifted slightly, and Dante was awake instantly. No grogginess, no stretching. 1 second he was asleep, the next his eyes were open and scanning the room for threats before locking onto me. "You're awake," he rasped, his voice rough with sleep. He sat up, rubbing his face. "Pain?" "A little," I admitted. My leg was elevated on a mountain of pillows, wrapped in a sleek black cast. "What time is it?" "Noon." He stood up, stretching his back. The muscles of his chest strained against the white dress shirt. He walked over to a side table and poured a glass of water, bringing it to my lips. "Drink." I drank greedily. "Dante, about last night. My family is currently under siege," Dante finished for me. He sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to jostle me. He pulled out a tablet and handed it to me. On the screen was a news feed. "Scandal at the Sterling wedding, Senator withdraws endorsement. Abuse allegations rock banking dynasty. Where is Julian Sterling? Police open investigation." I scrolled down, my eyes widening. There were videos. The moment I fell. Clara screaming at me. My father dragging me. It was all there, trending #1 worldwide. The comments were vicious. They treated him like a dog. "Look at his leg. He clearly needed help. The Sterlings are monsters. You did this?" I looked up at him. "I told you," Dante said calmly, taking the tablet back. "I destroy what threatens mine. But this is just the PR nightmare. This is just the distraction." "Distraction for what?" Dante's expression shifted. The softness was gone, replaced by the face of the Mafia Don. "While they are fighting off reporters and the police, my men are dismantling their actual power. Their supply chains. Their illegal offshore accounts. The leverage they use to keep their status." He reached out, cupping my cheek. "They broke your body, Julian. So I am going to break their world. Piece by piece. I want them to feel helpless. I want them to know what it feels like to have no one to call. They'll know it was you," I whispered. "My father, he has connections too. Dangerous ones." "Let them come," Dante sneered, a dark smile playing on his lips. "I'm counting on it." Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. One of Dante's lieutenants, a man named Enzo, stepped in. He looked grim. "Boss, we have a problem." Dante didn't look away from me. "What is it?" "It's the sister. Clara. She's downstairs in the lobby." My blood ran cold. "Clara is here? How?" "She's claiming she wants to apologize," Enzo said, looking skeptical. "She says she has your medicine, Julian. The specific painkillers you take for the nerve damage. She says she forgot to give them to you and wants to make things right." "She's lying," I said quickly, gripping Dante's wrist. "Clara never apologizes. She's here to spy. Or worse." Dante stood up, buttoning his cuffs. "Oh, I know she's lying. But she has a lot of nerve coming into my tower. Don't let her up," I begged. "Please, Dante. I don't want to see her." "She isn't coming up here," Dante assured me. "I'm going down there." "Why?" "Because," Dante walked to the dresser and strapped on his shoulder holster, checking the gun with practiced ease. "The wedding was Act 1. The rescue was Act 2. Now." He turned to me, his eyes burning with cold fire. "It is time to deliver the message personally. Rest, Julian. I'll be back before you miss me." He walked out of the room, leaving the door open just a crack. I lay back against the pillows, staring at the cast on my leg. I felt safe in this bed, wrapped in Dante's scent, but a knot of dread tightened in my stomach. Clara hadn't come to apologize. The Sterlings didn't know the meaning of the word. She was the bait. And Dante had just walked right into the trap. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3, The Wolf at the Door. The elevator ride down to the lobby felt interminable. Dante stood in the center of the mirrored box, his reflection staring back at him, calm, composed, lethal. But beneath the surface, a volcanic rage was simmering. He adjusted the cuffs of his shirt, ensuring the cold steel of his customized semi-automatic was accessible beneath his jacket. Beside him, Enzo checked his earpiece. Perimeter is secure, boss. But she's not alone. She brought a legal consultant. A man named Thorn. Dante's eyes narrowed. Thorn? The Sterlings don't use consultants like that. Thorn is a cleaner. A mercenary. Should we take them out before the doors open? Enzo asked, his hand hovering near his own weapon. No, Dante said, his voice dropping an octave. Not in the lobby. Too many witnesses. I want to see what play Richard Sterling is trying to make. If he sent a hitman to my front door under the guise of a family reunion, he is more desperate and more stupid than I thought. The elevator dinged softly, a cheerful sound that contrasted sharply with the violence hanging in the air. The doors slid open. The lobby of Vansetti Tower was a cavernous space of black marble and gold, designed to intimidate anyone who walked in. In the center, near the security desk, stood Clara Sterling. She looked out of place. Her designer dress was wrinkled, likely from a night of pacing, and her makeup was smudged. She clutched a small paper pharmacy bag like a shield. Beside her stood a man in a nondescript beige suit. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and had eyes that moved too constantly, scanning exits, scanning guards, scanning Dante. Dante stepped out, his footsteps echoing like hammer strikes. He didn't rush. He walked with the predatory grace of an apex predator inspecting an intrusion in his territory. Mr. Vansetti, Clara's voice wavered. She tried to step forward, but two of Dante's guards blocked her path instantly. She flinched. I need to see Julian. Dante stopped 10 feet away. He didn't look at the man beside her. He kept his gaze pinned on Clara, dissecting her fear. You had 23 years to see him, Dante said, his voice smooth and cold as liquid nitrogen. You had 23 years to protect him. To be a sister. Instead, you treated him like a defective accessory that ruined your aesthetic. It's not like that. Clara cried, tears welling up. You don't understand our family. Father, he's strict. I had to do what I was told. I'm scared, Dante. Please. I brought his medicine. The nerve blockers. He can't sleep without them. She held out the bag, her hand trembling violently. Dante glanced at the bag, then finally shifted his gaze to the man beside her. And who is this? Your bag carrier? The man, Thorn, smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. I'm the family's legal representative, Mr. Vansetti. We are here to negotiate the return of Julian Sterling. He is a vulnerable adult under the conservatorship of his father. Legally, what you are doing is kidnapping. Dante let out a short, dry laugh. Kidnapping? I saved him from being discarded in a coat closet like refuse. And as for conservatorship, my lawyers filed an emergency injunction 10 minutes ago. Based on the footage of Richard Sterling dragging a disabled man across a floor, no judge in this city will grant you custody of a hamster, let alone Julian. Thorne's smile didn't falter. He took a step forward, his hand sliding casually into his jacket pocket. The law can be flexible. Mr. Sterling is very insistent. He wants his son back. Now. Enzo tensed beside Dante. The air in the lobby grew heavy, static electricity building before the storm. Clara, Dante said, his voice suddenly very soft. Did you know? Clara blinked, confused. Know what? Did you know your father sent you here to die? Clara's face went white. What? This man, Dante pointed a finger at Thorn, is not a lawyer. He is an assassin. Your father sent him here to kill me. And in the crossfire, do you really think he cares if you survive? That's ridiculous, Clara stammered, looking at Thorne. Daddy said Mr. Thorne would handle the negotiations. Handling, Thorne muttered. In a blur of motion, Thorne drew a suppressed pistol from his jacket. It happened in seconds, yet for Dante, time seemed to stretch. He saw Clara's mouth open in a silent scream. He saw the security guards raising their rifles. He saw the barrel of Thorne's gun swinging not toward him, but toward the elevator controls, to lock down the building. Dante didn't dodge. He advanced. Before Thorne could level the weapon, Dante lunged, grabbing the man's wrist and twisting it upward. A bone snapped with a sickening crack. The gun went off, the bullet shattering a glass chandelier above them, raining crystal shards down onto the marble floor. Thorne was big, but Dante was fueled by a rage that had been bottling up since he saw Julian on that ballroom floor. Dante drove a knee into Thorne's gut, doubling him over, then brought his elbow down hard on the back of the man's neck. Thorne collapsed to the floor, groaning, his gun sliding across the tiles. Dante stood over him, breathing heavily, adjusting his suit jacket. He placed a polished boot on Thorne's throat, applying just enough pressure to choke, not to kill. Not yet. Who hired you? Dante asked calmly. Sterling, Thorne wheezed, his face turning purple. He said, take you out, grab the Omega, leave the girl. Dante looked up at Clara. She was backed against the reception desk, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. She stared at the man she thought was a lawyer, then at Dante. The reality of her father's betrayal was crashing down on her. Her father hadn't just sent her into the lion's den, he had sent her with a bomb, indifferent to whether she survived the explosion. Take him to the basement, Dante ordered his guards, stepping off Thorne's neck. Find out everything he knows. Then dispose of him. Enzo and another guard dragged the semi-conscious hitman away. Dante turned to Clara. She flinched, covering her face with her hands. Don't kill me. Please. I didn't know. Dante walked over to her. He reached out and gently took the paper bag from her freezing hands. He looked inside. It was indeed Julian's medicine. A small mercy in a sea of cruelty. I believe you, Dante said. You aren't smart enough to be part of a hit. You're just the bait. He hates us, Clara whispered, staring at the floor, tears ruining her makeup. Father, he's losing his mind. The stock crash, the press, he blames Julian. He said Julian ruined the family name. He wants him back to punish him, Dante finished. To make him disappear permanently. Clara nodded, a sob escaping her throat. He's going to run, Dante. Daddy has a private plane at the airfield. He's liquidating assets. He plans to leave the country tonight. Dante's eyes went cold. If Richard Sterling left the country, he would be out of reach. And he would spend the rest of his life sending men like Thorne to hunt Julian down. A life of looking over their shoulders. That was not the life Dante promised his Omega. Go home, Clara, Dante said dismissively. Pack a bag. Go to a hotel. When the police raid your parents' house tonight, you don't want to be there. Why are you letting me go? She asked, trembling. Because Julian would be sad if you died, Dante said simply. And I don't want him to be sad. He turned his back on her and walked toward the elevators. Lock down the building, he ordered the head of security. No one in or out. And get the car ready. We're going to the airfield. Up in the penthouse, I was losing my mind. I had heard the gunshot. It was muffled by the layers of steel and concrete, but to an Omega attuned to his alpha, it sounded like a cannon blast. Dante! I screamed, thrashing against the sheets. I tried to swing my legs off the bed, but the heavy cast anchored me. Pain shot up my shin, hot and blinding, but the panic was stronger. He's hurt. They hurt him. The bond we shared, unofficial, unmarked, but undeniably real, was screaming at me. I felt a spike of adrenaline that wasn't mine. I felt a flash of violence. Mr. Sterling, please, you need to lie down. Dr. Eris was trying to restrain me, but I shoved him away with a strength I didn't know I had. Let me go! I have to help him. I managed to get my good foot on the floor. I grabbed the nightstand for support, my knuckles turning white. I was going to drag myself to that elevator if I had to. I wouldn't let him die for me. I wouldn't be the reason Dante then said he fell. The bedroom door flew open. Dante stood there. He looked disheveled. His hair was slightly mussed, and there was a small smear of blood on his white cuff, not his. But he was alive. He was whole. Julian! He crossed the room in 3 strides, catching me just as my strength gave out and I began to slide toward the floor. You idiot, he breathed, his voice shaking as he scooped me up and deposited me back onto the mattress. What are you doing? You're going to ruin the surgery. I heard a shot, I gasped, clutching the lapels of his jacket, pulling him down until our foreheads touched. I frantically scanned his body for injuries. I felt you getting angry. I thought, Clara is gone. She's unharmed, Dante assured me, capturing my hands in his. But she wasn't alone. Your father sent a man to kill me. I froze. The air left my lungs. He tried to kill you? He tried, Dante corrected, his eyes dark. He failed. He won't stop, I whispered, the terror clawing at my throat. Dante, you don't know him. He's obsessed with control. If he can't have me, he'll destroy anyone who does. We have to run. We have to go somewhere safe. Run? Dante pulled back, looking at me with an intensity that made me shiver. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small pharmacy bag Clara had brought. He placed it on the nightstand. The Vansettis do not run, Julian. We do not hide. He brushed the hair back from my forehead, his touch tender but his aura radiating a terrifying, final resolve. Your father is trying to leave the country. He's at the private airfield right now. He thinks he can escape the consequences of what he did to you. He thinks he can declare war on me and then fly away to a non-extradition country to spend your inheritance. Dante stood up, straightening his jacket. He looked like a god of war. Beautiful. Terrifying. I'm going to stop him. Dante, no. I reached for him, tears streaming down my face. It's a trap. It has to be. The police will handle it. Please, just stay with me. I don't care about justice. I just want you. Dante leaned down and kissed me. It wasn't a gentle kiss like before. It was hard, desperate, possessive. It tasted of danger and promises. I am doing this for you, he murmured against my lips. As long as he is free, you will never be safe. You will always be looking over your shoulder. I won't let you live like that. I am going to cut the head off the snake. He pulled away, turning to Dr. Eris. Sedate him if you have to. Do not let him leave this bed. Enzo will stay at the door with a full squad. No one enters. Dante! I screamed as he walked toward the door. He paused at the threshold, looking back at me one last time. His expression softened, just for a fraction of a second. I love you, Julian. Wait for me. Then he was gone. I slumped back against the pillows, sobbing uncontrollably. Dr. Eris moved closer, a syringe in his hand. I'm sorry, Julian, the doctor said gently. He ordered it. You need to rest. Your heart rate is too high. Don't, I pleaded weakly, but the fight was draining out of me. The earlier sedative hadn't fully worn off, and the emotional crash was hitting hard. As the doctor administered the dose, my mind swirled with images of Dante walking into a hangar filled with armed men. My father wouldn't be alone. He would have his own security. He would be waiting. He's walking into a slaughter, I thought as the darkness crept in again. And it's all my fault. But deep down, beneath the fear, I felt something else. A pull. A connection. Dante wasn't just walking into a fight. He was walking into his element. My father was a businessman who hired thugs. Dante was a predator who led an army. but even predators could bleed. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4, The Crown of Ashes. The private airfield was a desolate expanse of cracked concrete and weeds, located on the outskirts of the city where the industrial fog hung low and heavy. It was raining, a cold, biting drizzle that turned the runway lights into blurry halos of orange and white. Inside Hangar 4, Richard Sterling was pacing. His pristine suit was rumpled, his tie loosened, sweat beading on his forehead despite the chill in the air. Behind him, the sleek white Learjet was being prepped for takeoff, its engines whining with a high-pitched scream that echoed Richard's internal panic. "Why are we not moving?" Richard shouted at his pilot, who was checking the landing gear. "We're waiting for clearance from the tower, Mr. Sterling," the pilot shouted back over the noise. "There's an unexpected hold on all departures." "I own the damn tower!" Richard roared, his alpha posturing cracking to reveal the terrified animal beneath. "Bribe them! Threaten them! Just get this plane in the air." He pulled out his phone, his thumb hovering over his offshore banking app. He was transferring the last of the liquid assets. $50 million. Enough to disappear in the Caymans. Enough to forget he ever had a disappointment of a son named Julian. Mr. Sterling, his head of security, a burly beta named Cale, stepped forward, looking at his earpiece with a frown. "We have incoming vehicles. Fast." "Police?" Richard asked, his heart hammering against his ribs. "No, sir. No sirens. Just black SUVs. Lots of them." Richard's blood ran cold. He ran to the hangar doors, peering out into the rainy night. At the far end of the runway, a wall of headlights appeared. They were police cruisers. They were armored Escalades, moving in a phalanx formation. They tore across the tarmac, ignoring the lanes, heading straight for the hangar. "Close the doors!" Richard screamed, backing away. "Get us in the air now. Run them over if you have to." But it was too late. The lead SUV smashed through the chain-link fence, drifting sideways to block the hangar entrance. The others fanned out, creating a barricade of steel and tinted glass. The doors of the vehicles opened in unison. Richard expected a shootout. He expected chaos. Instead, he saw precision. Dozens of men in black tactical gear poured out, weapons raised but disciplined. They didn't fire. They simply formed a perimeter, cutting off every possible escape route. Then, from the center vehicle, a single figure emerged. Dante Vanzetti. He wasn't wearing tactical gear. He was wearing a charcoal wool coat over his suit, the collar turned up against the wind. He didn't run. He walked toward the hangar with his hands in his pockets, as casually as if he were strolling through a park. "Stop him!" Richard shrieked at his security team. "Shoot him!" Cale looked at Dante, then at the 20 red laser dots currently dancing on his own chest. He looked back at Richard, dropped his gun, and raised his hands. "I'm not dying for a paycheck, Sterling," Cale muttered, backing away. "You coward!" Richard spat, fumbling for the small pistol he kept in his briefcase. "I wouldn't," Dante's voice cut through the noise of the jet engines like a whip. Dante stopped 10 feet from Richard. He looked at the trembling older man with an expression of profound boredom. "Turn off the engines," Dante signaled to the pilot. The pilot, seeing the small army assembled outside, killed the power immediately. The whine died down, leaving only the sound of rain drumming on the metal roof. "You can't do this," Richard stammered, holding the gun with shaking hands. "I am Richard Sterling. I have senators on speed dial. If you touch me, the feds will bury you." "The feds?" Dante raised an eyebrow. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his coat pocket. "The feds are actually quite grateful to me tonight. You see, Richard, while you were busy abusing your son, my forensic accountants were busy tracing your money." Dante took a step forward. Richard took a step back, hitting the landing gear of his jet. "Tax evasion. Money laundering for the cartel down south. Embezzlement from your own charity foundation," Dante listed the crimes calmly. "I sent the file to the FBI 20 minutes ago. They aren't coming to save you. They're coming to collect the evidence." You ruined me, Richard whispered, his face gray. For him? For Julian? He's nothing. He's a cripple. A defect. Dante moved so fast Richard didn't even see it coming. One moment Dante was standing still, the next, he had closed the distance. He slapped the gun out of Richard's hand and grabbed him by the throat, slamming him against the side of the jet. Bang! Richard's head bounced off the metal fuselage. He gasped for air, clawing at Dante's leather-gloved hand. He is, Dante snarled, his face inches from Richard's, the only thing in this world that matters. You broke his leg because he didn't fit your picture. You locked him away. You made him feel small so you could feel big. Dante tightened his grip. Richard's vision started to spot. I should kill you, Dante whispered, the demon in his eyes surfacing. I should peel the skin from your bones. But Julian, he has a soft heart. He wouldn't want your blood on my hands. Dante released him. Richard slumped to the wet concrete, coughing and retching, clutching his bruised throat. So I'm going to do something worse, Dante said, standing over him like a judge passing a death sentence. I'm going to let you live. In a cage. With nothing. Sirens wailed in the distance. Real sirens this time. Blue and red lights flashed against the rain-slicked tarmac. That's your ride, Dante said, buttoning his coat. The FBI seized your accounts 5 minutes ago. Your house is sealed. Your jet. He patted the metal hull. Is evidence. You are a pauper, Richard. A bankrupt, child-abusing pauper. Richard looked up, hatred and despair warring in his eyes. He'll never be a real mate to you. He's broken goods. Dante looked down at him with pity. He was never broken. He was just surrounded by trash. Dante turned and walked away, not looking back as the federal agents swarmed the hangar, handcuffing the sobbing patriarch of the Sterling dynasty. As Dante got back into his SUV, he pulled out his phone. He dialed a number. Is he awake? Dante asked. He's fighting the sedative, boss, Enzo's voice came through. He's asking for you. Tell him I'm coming home, Dante said, looking at the rain washing away the filth of the airfield. Tell him it's over. 2 weeks later. The cast on my leg was heavy, but the pain was different now. It was a healing pain, not the sharp, jagged agony of damage. I sat on the terrace of the penthouse, a blanket draped over my lap. The city of New York sprawled out below me, glittering in the twilight. It looked beautiful from up here. Peaceful. For the first week, I had flinched every time a door opened. I had checked the news compulsively, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Waiting for my father to buy his way out, for Clara to call screaming, for the police to come for Dante. But the silence from the Sterling camp was absolute. My father was being held without bail, deemed a flight risk. The charges against him were so numerous it would take years just to go to trial. Clara had disappeared into obscurity, moving to the Midwest to live with a distant aunt, changing her last name to avoid the shame. My mother had simply checked herself into a private clinic in Switzerland and refused to speak to anyone. The Sterling Empire hadn't just fallen, it had been erased. You're getting cold. I didn't flinch this time. I smiled. Dante stepped onto the terrace, carrying 2 mugs of tea. He looked tired. He had been working nonstop to ensure my father's lawyers hit dead end after dead end, but he looked relaxed in a way I had rarely seen. He was wearing a soft cashmere sweater instead of his usual armor-like suits. He placed the mugs on the table and sat on the outdoor sofa next to me, immediately pulling me into his side. I rested my head on his shoulder, inhaling the scent of cedar and home. Dr. Aris says the bone is knitting well, Dante said, his hand resting possessively on my thigh, just above the cast. Another 4 weeks, and you can start physical therapy. He thinks if we work hard, you might not even need the cane this time. I don't mind the cane, I murmured, watching the lights of the city. It's part of me. I'm just glad I still have the leg. Dante pressed a kiss to the top of my head. You have a lot more than that. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. He placed it in my lap. What is this? Open it. My fingers trembled slightly as I undid the clasp. Inside was a stack of legal documents. I scanned the first page. Termination of conservatorship. Transfer of deed. I gasped. The house? The Sterling Manor? It's yours, Dante said casually. The bank foreclosed on it yesterday. I bought it this morning. Under your name. Dante. I hate that house, I whispered. It's full of ghosts. I know, Dante said. That's why I bought it. So you can do whatever you want with it. Burn it down. Sell it. Turn it into a shelter for stray cats. It's your choice, Julian. For the first time in your life, you have the power. Tears pricked my eyes. It wasn't about the money or the property. It was about the agency. My father had controlled every breath I took, every step I limped. Dante had just handed me the keys to my own life. I want to sell it, I said decisively. And I want to donate the money to the Omega Rights Center. The one my father tried to shut down last year. Dante chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound that vibrated against my ribs. Vindictive. I love it. He turned me slightly so he could look into my eyes. The city lights reflected in his irises, making them look like molten silver. There is one more thing, he said, his voice turning serious. He reached into his other pocket. This time, there was no envelope. Just a small, velvet box. My breath hitched. Dante. I didn't want to do this while you were high on painkillers, he said, a small, nervous smile playing on his lips, an expression so foreign on the Mafia Don that it made my heart soar. And I didn't want to do it while you were afraid. He opened the box. Inside sat a simple, elegant band of white gold, inlaid with a single, rare gray diamond that matched his eyes. You are not a broken thing I fixed, Julian, Dante said fiercely. You are the strongest person I know. You survived a war in your own home and came out kind. I don't want to be your savior anymore. I want to be your partner. He took the ring out. Julian Sterling, will you do me the honor of letting me spend the rest of my life worshiping you? The tears finally spilled over, hot and happy tracks down my cheeks. I looked at the ring, then at the man who had burned down the world just to make sure I was warm. I thought about the coat closet. The pain. The loneliness. The years of believing I was unworthy of love because of a limp. And then I looked at Dante, who looked at me as if I were the sun itself. Yes, I whispered. Yes, Dante. Yes. He slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. Dante didn't cheer. He didn't shout. He simply leaned in and kissed me, a slow, deep kiss that sealed a promise more binding than any law. The Sterlings are gone, he murmured against my lips. You are a Vanzetti now. And Vanzettis? We rule. I laughed, wrapping my arms around his neck, pulling him closer. My bad leg throbbed a little in the cold air, a reminder of where I had been. But as Dante pulled the blanket tighter around us, shielding me from the wind, I knew the pain didn't matter anymore. I wasn't the limp Omega. I wasn't the defect. I was Julian Vanzetti. And I was finally, irrevocably, home. The end.